You are a miraculous image bearer of God, and you are worthy of love and respect, and you are cherished by the maker of heaven and earth, and he has plans for your life, and you deserve love and kindness and blessing and all that God has for you. You are a miraculous image bearer of God. So whatever you came in here with, you can just let that fall on the floor, because you are loved and you are worthy of love from God. So we are talking through the Beatitudes, which is found in Matthew 5, and that is often thought of as being a list of rules that Jesus gave in his famous Sermon on the Mount. But we've had it wrong for years. It's not a list of rules to add to everything we already have to do. Jesus is not about a list of rules. Instead, it's Jesus' mandate to humanity of how to live a good life. Now, if you are going to use something for the first time, you would probably read the manual. And so if we are, maybe not the men in the front row, but some of us would read a manual. If we are going to see how to live a good life, surely we look to the creator of life and say, what does he say? How should we live a good life? And so that is what the Beatitudes are. It's Jesus' way of explaining what the good life, according to him, looks like. It's not a list of rules. So that word blessed, so you'll know it might be familiar to you. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So those are the second 3 out of the 9 Beatitudes. They are Matthew 5, verse 6, Matthew 5, verse 7, and Matthew 5, verse 8. That word blessed is the word ashrei, which means, according to me, in the way I perceive it, this is what the good life looks like. So it's Jesus talking. So ashrei, according to me, the blessed life, the good life, looks like this. And the 3 that we're talking about this morning are righteousness, merciful, and pure in heart. So let's jump into Matthew 5, verse 6. It says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. So righteousness, you may have heard in lots of Christian areas, can be a bit off-putting, a bit of an off-putting word. Christian words can be hard to understand sometimes. It just goes over our heads. But righteousness means simply to be in right standing with God. God is a God of justice, so to be justified before God, to be made perfect. God himself is righteous. So to stand before God, saying, we are enough. I am good enough. I am in right standing. I am pure before God. That is what righteousness means. To be free of guilt and sin. We can also sometimes be self-righteous. So at the time, Jesus would have been speaking to an audience that knew a lot about self-righteous people. And maybe you know some self-righteous people. And the religious leaders of the time, the religious leaders of the time were pretty self-righteous. So they had taken the 10 commandments and made them into a bajillion commandments, and they had said, you need to do this on top of it, and you need to do this, and you must do that, and you mustn't do this. And they walked around wagging their finger at everybody who was doing the wrong thing, and then they would stand in the synagogues and preach how wonderful they are, and like really bombastic religious people. But on the inside, God knew that their hearts were not for him. They were just going about this religious work and this understanding that if you follow all the rules, you're going to go to heaven and you're so great. They thought themselves to be morally superior. So that is self-righteous. Jesus is not calling us to be self-righteous because he knows we cannot. No amount of good works and amazing things and saying all the right things at the right time are going to produce righteousness in us. Then we have the unrighteous, which the Bible describes as devouring each other. Now, in our society, I think I see a lot of unrighteousness, where it's dog eat dog out there and every man for himself. Nobody's worried about anybody else, but what can I get? What's in it for me? And that is the unrighteous that are devouring each other. So God is not calling us to that, to corruption. He's not calling us to self-effort to achieve this righteousness. He is calling us to a life of righteousness. So righteousness to be in right standing with God. Recently, I traveled with some friends, and we were in a shopping mall. And as girls do, we were window shopping. And we saw this beautiful coat in the window of one of the shops. And my friend Shirley said, "This coat is amazing." And the shop assistant came to the door and said, come, try on this coat. And it was this beautiful, luxurious black coat with black embossing. And it was just like the perfect coat. So we go into the shop, and Shirley takes it off the hanger, and as she slides her arms into it, we quickly do the calculations of what that would cost in rands. So as she sinks into this beautiful, luxurious coat, we say to her, "It's 150,000 rand." Poor Shirley nearly died on the spot because now she's got the coat on, and it looked really good, but she can't afford that coat. And we can't afford that coat. And now the shop assistant's looking at her saying, "You look amazing in this coat." And we're all going, 150,000 rand is a lot of money for one item of clothing. And when I was preparing for this, I was reminded of that. That's exactly what righteousness is. It's the opportunity for us to put on a cloak, a coat of righteousness, not our own. We cannot afford it. We cannot do anything to be able to afford it. We did not achieve it on our own. We did nothing to deserve that coat. But we can put on the righteousness of Christ that He won for us on the cross. We put on that righteousness. We can sink into it. We can own it. It's as if that shop assistant had said to Shirley, "That coat is yours. Off you go. It's for free. You can have it." That is what Jesus has done for us. His finished work on the cross has given us the ability to stand before God righteous. We don't earn it. We didn't deserve it. It's not a list of rules that we have to follow, but we can be in right standing, justified before the God of the universe because Jesus made a way for us to be there. I love how it says, "Blessed are those who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness." Now, I don't know about you, but I know when I'm hungry because I sometimes become a little hangry. That's when you're hungry, so hungry you become angry. So I know when I'm hungry and when I'm thirsty. So Jesus is calling us to live with a knowledge. We know that we are lacking. I know I am hungry. I lack food. I know that if I'm hungry and thirsty for righteousness, then I'm fully aware that I'm unable to be justified by God. I'm unable to be in right standing with God aside from Jesus. Are you hungry for righteousness? If we are really hungry, perhaps even to the point of being hangry, we will make sure that we make time to be fed. So if I am hungry for righteousness, I will make time to go to a place, to read my Bible, to pray, to be with God in order to be fed. I will go out of my way to find the righteousness that Jesus offers because I'm hungry. We know our lack. That's a physical lack. We can understand hunger and thirst because it's a physical thing. Are we physically calling ourselves towards the righteousness of Jesus, or do we just ignore it and walk around as hangry Christians? If we're very honest, we would all like to die righteous. And what I mean by that is We all want to go to heaven one day. So we've been sold this story that when we die, we will get to the pearly gates, and there will be a saint, and he will read on the list, do you make the cut? And then if your name is on the list, the pearly gates will open, and you will enter heaven. It's a total lie. It's totally rubbish. That is not what Jesus calls us to. Jesus says he came to bring the kingdom of heaven here. The kingdom of heaven begins in our hearts when we accept the righteousness of God. When we say, I am hungry and thirsty and unable to achieve the standard that God has called me to outside of Jesus, so I will repent of my sin and take on the righteousness of Jesus, then the kingdom of heaven is birthed right then in our hearts. And from that moment, Jesus calls us into a lifestyle of advancing that kingdom into the people around us. So don't believe the lie that you got to go to heaven one day. Heaven starts now, and it starts in our hearts, and we get to choose to partner with heaven on a daily basis by saying, I know that I am completely powerless to be in right standing with God. I am completely powerless to overcome my sin on my own. But I can daily turn towards the righteousness of Jesus and accept that as a free gift. I don't have to work to earn his righteousness. St. Augustine says, our hearts are restless until they rest in God. The restlessness, are you hungry? Are you hungry for righteousness? Are you hungry for something of God? Are you hungry to see the kingdom of heaven advance in our nation, in our lifetime? Because then we will find rest. We will daily turn towards God and find that our hearts need. In Psalm 11, verse 7, it says, for the Lord is righteous. So we can't be righteous outside of God. The Lord is righteous. He loves righteous deeds. The upright will see his face. Earlier on in the year, we learned that seeing of his face, that is the presence of God. And in the presence of God, there is fullness of joy. So what Jesus is calling us to, he's saying, take the free gift of righteousness, and then we will be filled with God's presence, and then we will live this abundant lifestyle, this life of joy. And that's not just a once-off, it's a continual feeding. I don't only get hungry once. I wish I did. But I get hungry at breakfast and at lunch and at dinner and sometimes in between. We can understand the hunger. So are we hungry for righteousness? Are we hungry to see Jesus' kingdom advance in our lives? When we are hungry for him, we will receive that free gift and we will find fullness of joy. So the title of my message is, if it's for free, it's for me. If it's for free, it's for me. I don't know about you, I like free stuff. So if there's a free thing going, I'm in for it. So this is what Jesus is calling us to, a lifestyle of receiving the free gift of putting on his righteousness. If it's for free, accept the righteousness that Jesus has won for you through his death on the cross. And then it's for me. Once I've received this righteousness, I get to live in a lifestyle. I don't live in a lifestyle in order to be seen as righteous. I become righteous through the finished work of Jesus, and then I live a lifestyle according to that. It's upside down, wrong way around. We first receive, and then we can live it out. Okay, you with me? Still awake. We've got 2 more to go. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Mercy is another Christian word we like to use, but I've discovered this other word, which is actually what that word mercy means, and it's the word hesed. And that word is often translated in our Bibles as loving kindness. So you may have read it in terms of God and his loving kindness has done such and such. That loving kindness is interchangeable with the word mercy. It also means, so it can't be summed up in one word. It's summed up in a whole bunch of words. It also means love. It also means generosity, loyalty, Mercy in action, not just mercy, but mercy in action. There's an action to it. And treat me like family. That mercy is, I would treat my family, you keep your family close, you make sure everybody's got what they need. That thing, like we are so tight, we are family. Loving kindness, mercy, forgiveness, grace. That's all wrapped up in this word hesed. So blessed are those that love, those are generous, those are merciful, those that are forgiving, those that are loyal, those that treat each other like family, for they will be shown loving kindness and forgiveness, and the list goes on. The very essence of the word hesed is the character and nature of God. God himself is hesed. And Jesus had this knowledge. When he walked to the cross, he was dying so that we can receive that hesed into our lives. He went to the cross for that very reason. Like the previous point, we can't extend mercy perfectly until we have received the mercy that we need. Once we've received it, once we've realized that without Jesus we can't, we are helpless, we are powerless to save ourselves without Jesus. Once we've realized that and we receive the free gift of mercy, we then live in a lifestyle where we are able to extend that to others. You see, mercy and forgiveness, this hesed, loving kindness, this is the whole gospel. This is the very reason why Jesus came to earth. And mercy is unearned, undeserved, not owed, and it's a free gift that we get to simply receive through the finished work of Jesus and then to share. So if mercy and forgiveness are synonymous, in Matthew 18, Peter says to Jesus, how often should I forgive? How many times do I have to forgive? The same person keeps wronging me over and over again. How many times do I need to forgive this person? So Jesus answers by telling a parable. And the parable is of a man that owed a rich ruler a lot of money. And the rich ruler came to collect his debt. And the man said, I can't, please forgive me. I don't have the money. I can't pay you. And the rich ruler says, okay, I forgive you of your debt. You are forgiven. You don't have to repay me. It's paid for in full. That man, celebrating, cheering, woohoo, I have been forgiven of this great debt, walks down the road and finds a man that owed him a small amount of money. And the man who had been forgiven turned to the man who owes him money and said, you owe me money, pay up now, otherwise you're getting thrown in prison, I'm ruining your life for you. Jesus tells the story to show us how to live. When we realize that we have been forgiven of our debt, when we have been forgiven of our shame, then the only option is to release that forgiveness to others around us. Not to lord it over other people, but actually freely receive the grace and freely give the grace that that Jesus calls us to. That is what it looks like to live a merciful life. So unforgiveness is a trap. It's like slowly sipping on poison, hoping that the person that you are holding forgiveness from will die. Meantime, you are slowly poisoning yourself. We can only finally be free when we realize that we are fully forgiven, undeserved forgiveness, and we can release forgiveness to others without payment and without punishment. Desmond Tutu says, there is no future for the human race without forgiveness. When we don't forgive, that's a form of pride. That man that was forgiven much was too prideful to be able to look at the other man and say, you know what, I've been forgiven, let me forgive you too. The debts didn't even add up. This one was small. That's pride. We hold on to our pride, unwilling to extend mercy to others. But Jesus, as he hung on the cross, abused, ridiculed, ashamed, the worst of the worst, in pain, he cried out to his Father in heaven and he said, God, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. If Jesus himself can forgive his tormentors in the moment of being tormented, He's calling us to this lifestyle of radical mercy, radical forgiveness, because He demonstrated it for us. I know that in a room this size, there's probably a lot of people that need to release forgiveness. And there's a whole bunch of stories represented here. Each person represents a different story, and I don't know each story. And I know, I'm deeply aware that each story may have pain. Your story may carry deep pain. And you may be thinking, you have no idea, lady. You cannot tell me to forgive that person because you have no idea how bad it was. Or you could also be thinking, you are out of your mind because I have been the worst of the worst, and there is no way that Jesus could possibly forgive me. I am undeserving of forgiveness. I am aware that there may be both scenarios in the room, and I want to tell you I'm deeply, deeply sorry for your pain. I'm deeply, deeply sorry for the things that have happened to lead to where you are. And Jesus is so sorry for that pain that drove him to the cross in order to make a way for you to find freedom from that pain, to release forgiveness over you so that you can release healing and forgiveness over others. When we forgive, it's this healing that comes upon us. We release control of our pain and our hurts, and we allow Jesus to come in and to bring His healing. That's the very reason why He died. I want to say that the goal would be to receive forgiveness. There's normally, when there's forgiveness, there's oftentimes repentance. I'm so sorry I hurt you. It's repentance. I won't do it again. And then there's forgiveness that comes. And then there's reconciliation, where a relationship can be restored, maybe between brothers or family members or work partners, whatever. That is the goal. Repentance, forgiveness, reconciliation. But it's not always possible. Sometimes the person that we need to forgive has passed on. Sometimes the person that we need to forgive is dangerous. And so it would be unwise to enter into a conversation or enter into a space where that person may be. But forgiveness doesn't need proximity. They don't have to be in the room in order for you to forgive them. Let go of the pain, let go of the disappointment, and find the healing of Jesus. If reconciliation is possible, that's awesome. But don't put yourself in a difficult situation where there is danger. You can forgive without proximity, and you can find freedom that your soul needs. When we forgive, we realize that we are powerless. We are powerless to change someone else's behavior. We are powerless to change the past. We are powerless to save ourselves. So we need to freely receive mercy from Jesus and then release mercy to others. So are you able or willing to receive forgiveness? Are you able and willing to forgive others? And maybe, are you able and willing to forgive yourself? You see, if it's for free, then it's for me. So Jesus died so that I can find forgiveness of my sin, that He can release His mercy and forgiveness over me, and I just have to take hold of that. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to clean up my act in order to receive that forgiveness. It's a free gift. So today, you can receive the mercy that comes through the finished work of Jesus on the cross. And then it's for me to live out a lifestyle of extending mercy, grace, Hesed, loving kindness to those people around me. And a continual inpouring of receiving of the grace and the mercy and the forgiveness of Jesus, and a continual pouring out of that to others. Okay, you ready for the next one? You still awake? Yeah. Okay, good. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So tell me, how is your heart? You may sit here and think, well, basically I'm a good person. You know, I cheated on my taxes a little bit, and, you know, I've got road rage sometimes. But basically, I'm a good person. My heart, I know the depravity of my own soul. And so this verse in Jeremiah is so encouraging. Let me read it for you. Jeremiah 17, verse 9. It says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" I relate so deeply to this because I know, my heart, I know I want to do something right and then I end up doing the wrong thing. I know I want to think good thoughts and I end up thinking the wrong thoughts. I know that my heart is deceitful and I know that I am powerless to change my own heart outside of Jesus. And that is the good news, that Jesus made a way for our hearts to be transformed. Scripture says when we come to a place of salvation, when we put our faith in the finished work of Jesus, He takes out your heart of stone and replaces it with a heart of flesh. And then He can work miracles through you. This beatitude, Matthew 5 verse 8, is just a little off center of the very center. So there's 9, 3, 6, 9. This one is at the bottom. So it's not quite the middle, but I was listening to a podcast where they describe how beautifully Jesus even positioned the heart at the very center of all of the others. Jesus is most concerned with our heart because our heart is not the thing that's beating in our chest. Our heart is the essence of who we are. Your heart is your character, your nature, your mind, your will, your emotions. Jesus is not worried about the outside appearance. He's worried about your heart. How is your heart? A pure heart would look like a heart without hypocrisy, because none of us have ever told our children, no, you can't have chocolate before bed, and then gone and eaten chocolate ourselves, right? A pure heart is without hypocrisy, cleansed. A pure heart is a heart like Jesus. How is your heart? I know that our hearts can let us down. I know that there's all kinds of things that are let into my heart that can make it scratchy and ugly and yucky. And I once heard a story of someone saying, our hearts are like a stream. So when we choose to give our hearts to Jesus, when we surrender our lives to Him through salvation, the finished work on the cross, then He purifies our heart. He gives us a pure heart. We put on the mind of Christ. We are filled with the Holy Spirit. We have this pure heart, like a pure stream, beautiful, crisp, clear. And then as we continue through life, junk gets in. Maybe somebody cuts you off in traffic and you show a finger that you shouldn't show. Maybe your kids drive you batty and you say things and you do things you shouldn't. Whatever the case is, slowly, over time, junk starts to get into our stream and it becomes polluted and ugly and yucky. And that stream of our heart is full of muck. The truth is that Jesus died on the cross to save us. He was resurrected, raised to life, to give us a clean heart, a pure heart. And we cannot have a pure heart outside of living on a complete reliance on Him. And when we walk in step with Him, day by day, a daily turning towards Him, He helps us by the power of His Spirit to take out that litter, to take out that muck, and to keep the streams of our heart pure and beautiful before Him. You see, we so often get this wrong because I don't know if you've heard this. Maybe you've invited someone to church and they've said, I cannot set foot in a church because I will automatically burst into flames. Or a lightning bolt will come. I am too bad. I just need to sort myself out before I get myself into church. Have you heard anyone say that before? People want to fix the outside, thinking, if I walk into church looking like I've got my act together, pretending like we didn't have a fight on the way here, pretending like my kids are sweet and innocent and perfect, if I can just pretend, nobody will know that my heart is desperately sick. The truth is that your heart is desperately sick. Because my heart is desperately sick. And the Bible tells us all of us are desperately sick outside of Jesus. And we work so hard to fix the outside. That's the hypocrisy. When Jesus is not worried about what we look like on the outside, He is after our hearts. How is your heart? Oftentimes we'll say, okay, I want to get my life right. I'm going to do a Bible study. I'm going to watch a TED talk and maybe even do some counseling. And then I'll look okay and I'll know how to walk and I'll know how to talk and I'll know how to habit stack. And then once I'm right, once I'm fixed up on the outside, then I'll go to church. Then I'll submit to God. But actually, God is not worried about behavior modification. He's worried about heart purification. God is not worried about what we look like on the outside. He doesn't care for habit stacking. God is all about character development. So how do we get a pure heart? The people who have a pure heart are the ones who are mourning the fact that they don't have a pure heart. You can't change what you won't confront. So recognizing my heart is impure, imperfect, and being brave enough to admit that. I don't have all the answers, I don't have my act together, but I know that Jesus has made a way. So I'm going to receive that free gift from Jesus, that pure heart that I can only get through him. Then it doesn't become about outward appearances. It's all about the purification of the heart. So as we confront it, as we realize, I am broken, I am lost without Jesus, then we can enter into a relationship with Jesus and receive salvation. Jesus, I know that I cannot do this. I am powerless to change. Would you save me? Would you bring me a clean heart? And yes, there is a moment, a once-off moment. I received Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I am now born again. I am saved, all those things. But it's also a lifestyle because our hearts get full of junk. So it's a lifestyle of coming into the presence of God and saying, come and purify my heart. Come and purify my heart. Take out this junk. Continual freedom, not just a moment of freedom, but a continual calling to freedom through Jesus. Mark 12, verse 30 says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all of your strength. When we love God enough to take off the masks that we've put up, the self-preservation, people shouldn't know this about me. When we love God enough to take that down and to say, I know I need help, that's when we receive the pure heart. Because God does not worry about the outside appearance. He's worried about the transformation of our heart. Loving God is a way to a pure heart and receiving the free gift of salvation. I love that this Beatitude speaks about when you, let me read it because I'm going to paraphrase it wrong. Blessed are the pure in heart, for you will see God. When we purify our hearts, we will see God. And when we look upon the face of God, as we've discussed already, that's where we find fullness of joy. That's abundant life. Jesus knows what he's talking about. The good life, the blessed life, ashrei. We get to walk with Jesus on a daily basis. And one of the commentators that I read, he spoke about how this is a point back to Eden. God created man and woman. He created them to be in relationship with him. And he put them in the garden. And then we read in Genesis how he walked in the garden with them. This is pointing back to that it's possible when we surrender our lives to Jesus, we receive the free gift of a pure heart. We receive the free gift of righteousness. We receive the free gift of forgiveness and mercy. Then we walk in the garden with God the way that he intended for us to walk in step with him. And in his presence is fullness of joy. This is a free gift. We don't have to work for it. All three of these Beatitudes are pointing towards us acknowledging that we are powerless to change. We are powerless to save ourselves outside of the finished work of Jesus on the cross. When we recognize that we are powerless and we put our faith in Jesus, then we receive this blessed life, this ashrei life. So if it's for free, receive the free gift of salvation God loved you enough to send His Son to die on the cross and to be raised to life so that you can receive a pure heart, that you can receive righteousness, that you can receive mercy, and that you can extend it to those around you. It's for me. Let me allow myself to receive it so that I can share it. Would you receive these free gifts so that you can share them with those around you? That's the kingdom of heaven advancing on earth. That's when the kingdom of heaven starts to make its move across the face of the earth and make its move across Centurion. When you allow the kingdom of heaven to be birthed in your heart, when you accept the free gift of salvation, the free gift of mercy, the free gift of a pure heart, heaven comes and you get to be part of the change that Jesus is calling us to.